right, welcome to this little hackathon on the OpenAI competition for democratic inputs to AI. Basically, this is a short introduction to the hackathon itself, to the challenge itself, along with like a few resources and whatever I found this morning. So, what is the challenge about? They have this blurb, but I've summarized it, not using any ChatGPT or anything. But basically, it's about democratically designing and deciding the AI guidelines that we want the AI to be constrained to. So, for example, how should it react to local laws, even though those laws might be different in different countries, right? Like these sorts of questions that are about behavior and whatnot. And it's about these large-scale sort of survey experiments and figuring out what do people think about core questions regarding AI. So we want to democratically decide, well, how should AIs behave? And OpenAI is granting $100,000 to the top 10 projects to actually finish that as public reports for October. So it's a tight deadline. And here I've just like copy-pasted the policy questions they have in focus, and just going line. They would like to have people's focus on these, but you're also welcome to decide your own questions that are related to these things. So one of the first ones is, how far do you think personalization of AI assistants should go? How should AI assistants respond to questions about public figures or their viewpoints? And under what conditions should they be allowed to provide like very rigorous advice, like in medical, financial, law fields? And in which cases should they offer emotional support? You know, there can be a lot of issues there. And should joint vision language models be permitted to identify people's gender, race, etc.? So an array of questions regarding both bias, but also like different areas of how we would like them to act in terms of how precise they are and how they actually work then in real life, right? And the review factors they put up. One is evaluation. It's like, establish metrics for evaluating your stuff. It's robustness of the actual measure, inclusiveness and representativeness. It is empowerment of minority opinions. There are different designs for that. Effective moderation. So making sure that diverse representation of viewpoints is put in. Scalability, actionability, and legibility. I think they sort of explain themselves to some degree. Otherwise, you can read them both in the slideshow or on the website itself. And then the actual grant. This is just what they write. So grant recipients are required to like have at least 500 participants participate in their solution to this, whatever that might be. And as part of the grant program, like any code or stuff like this will be under open source license as part of the requirements. So they want to establish an open conversation about all of this and make sure that that we begin discussing how we want this to work. And then I just have a few thoughts. So one of the thoughts is like probably demo your surveys to your Facebook wall or something similar. Like make sure that you actually have some real minimum viable product of what you want to publish. I think today, for example, I would like to just put something on my Facebook wall and ask people for their random opinions. And I think there are some people there who have good opinions, and then there are just other people who are other opinions. And then there are some thoughts on like these large-scale international surveys. We have our own biases, right? So we probably might also want people's opinions on what the actual questions are. And even though they have some policy questions, but underneath those, there's a bunch of questions that, okay, if we design those, there's just going to be a lot of differences and variance in responses. And then the broad public input, making sure that it's not just like techies or not just law or not just, making sure that it's a representative sample. And then in general, there are some different areas that are quite interesting to think about here. So in general, using AI for democracy, there are a bunch of initiatives across the world. So for example, in Denmark, now that we're here, there is the borgerforslag, the concept where citizens can send in their recommendations and like designs for these sorts of mass decision-making processes. And Taiwan has done a lot of has done a lot of great work here in enabling digital democracy. So there's a bunch of inspiration to grasp at there. And then in general, this is sort of a large-scale problem of solving ethics, right? We want to go closer and closer towards something that is robust in terms of how they behave and how aligned they are. So Joshua Bach, for example, talks about how the alignment problem, actually the problem we have to solve, is theoretical ethics, and figure out all the ways that that you can decide what is the right action in any given circumstance. And so this is sort of trying to approximate that, right? Law is trying to approximate some sort of moral control or social restriction there, in the same sense, to establish alignment. And then there are tools for thought, which is sort of a field that looks at how can we use software to enhance human cognition, and this also is very related to like collective intelligence. And so it might be interesting to look at that. There are a couple names here that are pretty great at thinking about this. And then you have just democratic deliberation or deliberative democracy. You have process supervision with democratic inputs. Other words that are pretty good. And so so you can search for that. Here are some of the resources as well. So deliberative democracy is just like making sure that people are included in their opinions, and like it's a deliberate process and not just, hey, let's do this process. And often that includes democracy, because then you sort of have to define what you're doing. And some other resources are this are like advanced digital democracy designs, tools for thought, process supervision, and iterated decomposition. So this is stuff about, okay, how can we implement this in an AI framework? So getting a bit of overview of, okay, how would, like, which questions do we have to design to actually make OpenAI able to implement it in ChatGPT or something like this? So there's interesting things there. And then one of the organizers is Polis as well, of the challenges of the like OpenAI challenge, and they also have a blog on like collective decision making and things like this. So those are some good options. And now what? Well, here in Copenhagen, I don't know. It'll be about like 7+ hours of hacking away. The website itself for this hackathon has submissions ending tonight internationally as well. But the broad challenge from OpenAI ends on the 24th of June. So that's so you have more time than today. So they are open for grant for applications there, grant applications, I guess you would call it. And so I encourage you to make plans to continue your hackathon proposals too, and then send in your applications on openai.smapply.org. So do you have any questions otherwise?